I cooked him my famous tuna fish casserole.
Tuna fish casserole?
Oh, don't worry. I used artificial casserole.
Created by Noah Z. Jones, Fishhooks is a Disney Channel animated series that ran from September 2010 to April 2014 for a total of 59 episodes across 3 seasons. The show follows a trio of best friends, the neurotic and socially awkward Oscar, his brother, the impulsive party animal Milo, and the studious aspiring actor Bee. Together they navigate the high tides and low tides of teenage life, whether it's unrequited crushes, starting their first job, learning to drive, being mistaken for the Queen of England and getting swept away to a royal wedding, worrying about final exams. Oh, and the characters are all fish and various other sea creatures residing in an interconnected series of tanks inside a pet store. This show has always felt weird to me because I associate it with 2 different eras of the Disney Channel. It premiered at the tail end of the network's most successful decade, airing its first season alongside shows like Wizards of Waverly Place, Hannah Montana, and The Sweet Life on Deck. But by the time it came to an end, all those flagship shows had ended as the channel underwent a massive rebrand. While the series isn't often remembered fondly, it was largely successful, spending a majority of its run as Disney's second most popular current animated series, playing second fiddle to Phineas and Ferb, which doesn't fit neatly into any era because that show transcends time itself and will outlive us all. Though before I can revisit Fishhooks, there is something that needs to be addressed. In the years since it ended, 2 of the show's main voice actors have been charged with very serious crimes, which is why I've been on the fence about making this video for a long time. The way I saw it, I had 2 options, neither of which I really liked all that much. I could either address everything, which would require speaking on topics I don't feel equipped to properly talk about, or I could not mention it and view the show as if it were in a bubble, which would be incredibly disrespectful to the very real victims here. In the end, I was able to arrive at a sort of compromise, which is this disclaimer. As for why I've decided to now make this retrospective, one of the things I constantly stress in my videos is the collaboration required to bring any piece of media into fruition, especially when it comes to animation. And Fishhooks is no different. The series was put together by both established and future titans of the industry, including C.H. Greenblatt, Mr. Warburton, Maxwell Atoms, and Alex Hirsch, which led directly to him developing Gravity Falls, making it a crucial moment in animation history, and all the hard work they and a bunch of other creatives put into these episodes should be recognised. So, let's dive in. In the mid-2000s, successful children's book author Noah Z. Jones was approached by Disney Channel executives to develop an animated series for the network. In response, Noah sent over 5 pitches for potential shows, but the one that stood out the most was an idea about aquatic life attending high school called Fish Tales, which was soon renamed and picked up for a pilot that would be developed by SpongeBob and Chowder writer Bill Reese and recent CalArts graduate Alex Hirsch. And that is where it's quite fortunate I waited until now to make this video, because had I done it back when I originally intended, this would have been the end of the section, because we knew very little about the Fishhooks pilot. Disney TVA is quite notorious for not releasing pilots of their shows, with only a few full ones publicly available, mainly thanks to the creator or crew members. Meaning for years, all we had of the Fishhooks pilot was small snippets that were aired as part of the show's promo material in Latin America. That was until a few months ago when there was a huge Disney TVA leak, revealing a bunch of assets from shows over the past 20 or so years, including many pilots. We no longer live in a world where you can't watch the Billy Dilly Subterranean Summer pilot on a loop. Doesn't that just make you so happy to be alive? This also means after 15 years of it being lost media, we now have access to the full Fishhooks pilot, or one of them. The test animatic, which would later be remade into the episode Fish Out of Water, is about Milo wanting to journey away from the tanks to explore outer space after learning about it in class, though his friends want no part in his scheme as they are busy dealing with the pressures of high school. However, when Milo embarks on this adventure alone, only to nearly suffocate, his friends agree to accompany him as they explore the world of Ready Pet Go, get chased by the store's cat Wilfred, and make it back home just in time for Bee to attend cheer tryouts. The pilot is rough around the edges, as you can tell they were still tinkering with things like the visual style and the characterization, but it is still very recognizable as Fishhooks.
You kids think you got problems? Well, look at me. I'm pregnant. Yeah! Let's talk about that for a while.
If there is one thing from this pilot I wish had carried over into the main series, it would be this idea of the trio trying to reconnect after starting to drift apart due to high school, as it provides the story with this layer of emotional depth that the finalized show often lacks. It gives you a sense that these characters have a long history together and makes you want to see them rekindle their friendship. There was room to grow, but this animatic showcased how much potential the series had, which the executives recognised, as Fishhooks became the first animated series picked up by the network in several years.
1, 2, 3, 4, who's that knocking at my door? 5, 6, 7, 8, hurry up and don't be late. 9, 10, 11, 12, got a secret I can tell. Clap your fins, flip your tail. School's out, ring a bell. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. 1, 2, 3, 4, who's that knocking at my door? 5, 6, 7, 8, hurry up and don't be late. 9, 10, 11, 12, got a secret I can tell. Clap your fins, flip your tail. School's out, ring a bell.
Season 1 of Fishhooks premiered on September 3rd, 2010 and would run until October 2011, airing 21 episodes and 40 individual stories. Like all the Disney cartoons of the era, the first 11-minute segment was aired as a special preview before the official premiere, following the network debut of Camp Rock 2 Final Jam, similar to what the channel had done a few years prior when they followed the much-anticipated premiere of High School Musical 2 with the first showing of their newest show, Phineas and Ferb.
A place dripping with adventure, where friendship determines success or failure. An experience so traumatic, it can only be defined by 2 words. High school.
Check out the pit stains on my tuck!
Fishhooks, a brand new show. Catch a sneak peek after the premiere of Camp Rock 2 The Final Jam on Disney Channel.
The series takes place in Bud's Pets, which changes every episode, often loosely tying into the underwater storyline. A few of my favourites from Season 1 include Bud's Pets and Swords, Bud's Pets and Daycare, Bud's Pets and Home Insurance, Bud's Pets and Flight School, Bud's Pets and Amateur Puppetry, and of course, lest we forget, Bud's Pets and Misdemeanors. While this was intended as a running gag, their own version of Bart writing on the chalkboard, the way the story's constantly changing business models and the fact we never see a single customer leads to my first Fishhooks fan theory. Bud's Pets is either part of a money laundering scheme, or it's a drug front.
Ah! Someone should call the police!
Despite my fond memories of Fishhooks from when it was airing, this time around the show took a while to truly grow on me, as it spends the first chunk of the season struggling to find its footing and carve out a unique identity, often relying heavily on stock high school plots you've seen a million times before, while it's trying to pin down exactly who these characters are. So you get stories where someone invents a fake romantic partner, or they have to sneak into the yearbook office to retrieve an embarrassing photo, with nothing new added besides the characters being fish, which sometimes is enough. A rather generic sounding episode centered on getting a dog is made infinitely more entertaining when it's about the fish trying to take care of an actual dog who doesn't even fit in the frame. It also helps significantly that even during this more awkward period, the show's writing is on point.
Oscar! Don't fight back! Those scorpions have rights!
In my opinion, the best of these early episodes focus on exploring the aquatic nature of these characters and world building instead of merely watching them in high school. The episode Peopling, written and storyboarded by Maxwell Atoms, is a perfect example. Even though some of the jokes don't land, and it contains certain moments where I had to look away from the screen, it's elevated by a fun premise and creative visuals. If I had to single out one problem with these early episodes, it would be the 3 protagonists, as Bee, Oscar and Milo are often moulded to fit whatever the plot requires, which is especially evident in their treatment of each other. While certain episodes demonstrate how far these 3 are willing to go to help one another and the strength of their bond, other times they are simply awful towards each other. One day they're banding together to help Milo pass a test, and the next day they're trading Oscar into servitude. I think the turning point of their friendship and the show as a whole is the episode Flying Fish, written and storyboarded by Carl Faruolo. This is not only the first Milo episode to portray him sympathetically, because it's the first one where he isn't causing problems for everyone around him, but it's also about the trio learning to better support each other. Following this adventure, their dynamic feels properly solidified, as they are consistently written as great friends who would swim to the ends of the earth for each other. However, let's stop beating around the bush and get to why you're all here. If there is one thing Fish Hooks is known for, that would be its numerous distinct and memorable side characters. We'd be here forever if I listed them all, so I'll just give you the highlights. Clamantha, voiced by Alex Hirsch, is an optimistic clam with an obsessive crush on Oscar who loves spitting pearls of wisdom.
He was disrespecting me! He broke my heart, so I broke his face!
Chelsea is Bee's best friend outside the trio, a typical Valley Girl archetype who gets elevated thanks to Carrie Walgreen's immaculate performance.
Go get him, girl. And then bring him back here so he can sit on my lap.
Albert Glass, voiced by Attica Schaefer, is small and nerdy, often bearing the brunt of life's cruelty. He's also responsible for the only moment from this show that was able to breach containment and enter the mainstream.
I like you, have a cupcake. I like you, have a cupcake. I like you, have a cupcake.
As for the teachers, the main one is Mr. Baldwin, voiced by Dana Snyder.
How many times do I have to tell you? If you stand in the hallways long enough, someone's bound to punch you. I'll see you in detention.
But there's also Principal Sickler, voiced by Jerry Stiller, an obsessive nutcase who should not be in charge of a school as he actively endangers the lives of his students.
Wait! I missed one thing! You...
Then you have Miss Lips, the school's guidance counselor, voiced by Jennifer Coolidge.
Just get some scissors and cut the string!
Oh, what a good idea! Who would have thought? Scissors!
That's a terrible idea!
The last two characters I want to bring up are Coach Salmons, voiced by Richard Simmons,
Those moves! That agility! That's not football, Coach!
No, it's not. Not in any way, shape, or form.
and Mr. Muscles, voiced by Tiny Lister.
You didn't get the part, but don't you dare give up on your dreams. Someday, you will be on Fish Broadway for reals.
You're scaring me.
I wanted to give special mention to these two because, I mean, come on.
Straight, 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 straight!
See, it's funny because that's the opposite of what they are. One thing you can't say about Fish Hooks is that it doesn't have a distinct visual style, with the backgrounds being built using this photo collage technique. The simplistic geometrical shapes that seem allergic to any kind of horizontal lines evoke that UPA-inspired look many cartoons adopted in the early 2000s, though with the detailed textures giving it a modern twist. The best of them, though, is found in the episode The Tale of Sir Oscarfish, a medieval-inspired adventure where the background design takes inspiration from Evan Derle, whose art defined the look of Sleeping Beauty. The music for the series, composed by Andy Strummer, goes for this almost indie rock style that suits the show perfectly, giving it a laid-back vibe that evokes this feeling of hanging out with friends. The series also features regular songs, mostly simple pieces played over a montage, but every once in a while they go all out with a full musical number, which are often the highlight of any episode they appear in.
I'd steal your dreams if I could.
With this being during the era of Disney cartoons including extra scenes during the end credits, the team decided to do something fun and create a running segment that would bookend each episode. These star a snake and a mouse called Snake and Mouse, best friends who live opposite the tanks and as such spend their days watching the fish's various escapades, much like the audience, often providing commentary on one of the stories from the 22-minute block which transitions into a little skit.
That was quite a fight Milo and Oscar had. Glad we don't fight like that. We sure don't. We fight like this.
These provide a nice change of pace at the end of an episode that gives something a little different. And by a little different, I mean utterly horrifying.
Ha ha ha! X-ray specs! Ooh, at last! No secrets! I'll know everything! What is it? What is it?
As mentioned, I found after the first 11 or so episodes, the show really started to come into its own. Episode concepts felt less generic, the main characters became much more likeable, and the side characters started receiving more spotlight. Run Oscar Run, written and storyboarded by Blake Lemons, is a great episode about Oscar trying to make it to school on time in order to receive a perfect attendance award, only to face disaster at every turn. That is easily the funniest episode in this batch.
Objection, Your Honor!
I'm innocent, I tells you.
The butler did it! Can't argue with that. Not guilty.
Though the highlights were the two extended episodes towards the end of the season. In We've Got Fish Spirit, written and storyboarded by Diana Lafitas and Derek Evanick, Oscar needs some extracurricular credits for his future college applications, thus he joins Clamantha's cheer squad.
Yesterday, my entire team mysteriously disappeared. Okay, girls, we've got this cheer off in the bag. Or not.
What follows is an entertaining story lovingly poking fun at sports movies that, with the extra runtime, carries more emotional weight than a typical episode. Then a few episodes later we get Fish School Musical, my favourite episode of the first season because, of course it is. The kids put on a potato-themed musical that is an homage to Fiddler on the Roof, Beauty and the Beast, and Cats, perfectly capturing the awkward yet endearing passion of a high school production. But what holds it together is a surprisingly touching story that seeks to flesh out the character Joctopus, played by John DiMaggio. Till this episode, he had been a one-note school bully, which got old fast, especially since he was mostly treated as a plot device. This episode gives him some much-needed depth in the form of a very relatable struggle, which concludes in a heartwarming finale. While this freshman season got off to a rocky start, over the course of these first 21 episodes, I saw the show grow into something I had a genuinely good time with, setting a solid foundation that they could build off moving forward.
You know I love magical dudes. Dudes like Fish Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny fish, the Happy Hanukkah Gefilte fish, and Kyle Massey.
Milo, no! Lasting for 22 episodes between November 2011 and May 2013, Season 2 of Fishhawks continues building on the growth the series went through in the second half of Season 1 while also exploring the characters and their relationships on a slightly deeper level. The pacing has also dramatically improved, giving more energy to the snappy writing and removing any sense of boredom the series once had, except for the occasional drawn-out gags that appeal to my awful sense of humour.
I can't believe we almost missed this!
It also helps that the actors have now become more comfortable with their roles, allowing them to have fun with their performances, which translates into more frequent off-model expressions. Everything just has this sort of flow, to a point even the episodes set primarily at school feel far more creative and engaging because the show is so off the wall now. And that's good because we don't leave the tanks nearly as much as we used to, which is a creative choice I can see the reasoning behind. By the end of Season 1, characters would venture out into the rest of the store so often that it had lost any sort of significance when it used to be treated as a big deal. Keeping most of the stories underwater now makes it feel more special when we do venture outside, such as in Halloween Hall, written and storyboarded by Darren McGowan, the first of 2 holiday-themed stories this season, which provide a nice change of pace. When the kids get sick of Joctopus taking their Halloween candy every year, they decide to trick-or-treat outside the tanks, leading to some interactions with all the other animals and a really well-done chase scene that makes this one of the highlights of the season. Though it also is part of a long list of episodes this season, I feel would have worked far better as 22-minute specials. Another being All Fins on Deck, in which the character's vacation is ruined when the geckos hijack their party cruise. Thus, they go on a pirate adventure to take back what they rightfully rented. It's got a handful of great action set pieces and some nice moments for the characters, but feels like it ends way too soon. Going back to Halloween Hall, that episode also marks the first time Snake and Mouse not only appear outside the credits, but get to interact with the Fishers, which seems like a moment the show could have built up more. It's like Patchy meeting SpongeBob. This should feel way more special than a 10-second cameo. Though from this point on, it becomes fairly normal for the duo to drop in for a quick appearance during an episode.
Oh my gosh, it's great to see you guys!
Die, reptile scum!
The major change going into this season is the increased importance of the side characters, who are now given prominent roles in most of the stories. While Bee, Oscar and Milo are still clearly the main characters, it's nice seeing the show take on this more ensemble feel, opening up more story possibilities. By this point, the show had figured out who was and wasn't working, thus we start seeing characters like the school janitor Headphone Joe fade into the background, while others like Maxwell Atomsbo Gregory are given a lot more material. Though I'd like to give a special mention to Fimberly, played by Kimberly Mooney. Initially just another one of Bee's friends, now she's been given so much more personality, mainly in the form of a running gag where she keeps bringing up her ferret boyfriend Cody. The joke being how her life off screen is this over-the-top romantic drama down to them playing Titanic-esque music whenever she brings it up.
I had my heart broken by a dreamy ferret named Cody. One night Cody was supposed to pick me up for the big ferret dance. But then he said he forgot, and...
But of course, the true winner of this season is Chelsea. who has become the show's honorary fourth main character at this point, highlighting how she is this calming influence that helps keep Bee grounded while also showing up to save the day on occasion.
Oh, Chelsea, baby! I always knew if I waited long enough, someday you'd come back to me.
It's over, Chino. I already told you, I don't like guys with hairy legs.
But I can't help that!
Returning to the freshwater trio, the only significant change going into this season was Milo, who has been made far more childish, which works surprisingly well, playing into his obliviousness, which makes his actions come across as far less malicious. Problems no longer stem from him being selfish, but are now a result of him either trying to help his friends or standing up for what he believes in, making him far more likable than Season 1 Milo. One of the biggest additions this season is a greater sense of continuity, where previous episodes are referenced often by revisiting certain locations, characters, and ideas. These aren't sequel episodes, but things like Milo still being the water boy for the football team, characters wearing outfits from previous episodes, or referencing Mr. Baldwin being pregnant.
According to all the books I've read, the common male seahorse will be pregnant for 2 to 4 weeks. And so for today's pop quiz, answer this. What kind of monster is growing inside of me?
Little touches here and there that makes it feel like previous episodes do matter, which contributes to this idea of the characters feeling as though they are really starting to mature. But we have yet to address the biggest status quo change of the season, which can be found in the first full-length special, Principal B, written and storyboarded by Joe Johnston. In between season 1 and 2, Jerry Stiller left the show, leading to Principal Stickler pretty much disappearing for most of the season, which made way for other members of the faculty, such as Dr. Frog and Miss Lips, to receive greater focus.
I'm driving a wagon because I'm not allowed to drive a car anymore.
When Stickler did make a rare appearance, he was now voiced by Jeff Bennett, who does a nice job, but it's clear Jerry Stiller was simply irreplaceable. Thus, this episode was created to write the character out of the show, giving him a proper send-off. When Stickler goes missing for a week, the school is plunged into chaos, eventually leading to Bee becoming principal, though she soon discovers that Stickler's assistant, Nurse Fishington, has been a robot this entire time.
I was created to be the perfect principal. For 10 years I've run this school while my creator took all the credit.
Stickler built you?
Yes, but I've evolved beyond my original programming.
Who takes over, turning the school into a prison, causing the students to form a resistance. Eventually, Bee, Milo, and Oscar discover Stickler locked in his filing cabinet, as it turns out Fishington is malfunctioning due to an accident. One Terminator parody later, and it seems things are about to return to normal when...
My dear Fishington, I created you to be the perfect principal so I wouldn't have to do my job. Brilliant, I know, but it seems that even I underestimated my own genius. You are that perfect principal. Without you, this school would have collapsed long ago. And so, at long last, I bequeath this to you, Principal Nurse Fishington.
This honestly might be my favourite episode of the entire show. It's easily their most ambitious story that interestingly challenges the characters while still leaving room for all that great comedy as per usual.
I'm sure you're all aware of the situation that we found ourselves in this week.
Very terrible.
Somebody's been stealing from the staff room fridge.
But more than anything, I respect this episode for how it is able to provide a satisfying and slightly emotional send-off for one of their most important supporting characters. So far, I've been doing nothing but praising Season 2, but it's not without its problems. Mainly quite a few dud episodes like Bee Dates Milo, where just a lot of uncomfortable nothing happens. Or Get a Yob, a vaguely offensive episode where Milo gets the lunch lady fired. These stories aren't atrociously bad or anything. If they aired during Season 1, they wouldn't be that notable. But in a season where the bar has been raised significantly, the bland ones end up sticking out a lot more. Though the lunch lady episode does include a fun parody of the Matchmaker song from Fiddler on the Roof, which after last season, I think it's fairly obvious to say what the favourite musical among the writers was. In fact, there are quite a few musical references jotted around the season, which was a nice treat. Nothing on the level of Kith though.
Okay, Sweepy, give it to us straight.
This is going to be the worst musical ever produced, and I was at the premiere of Legs Diamond.
What?
If you know, You know, we've talked about Stickler retiring as principal and riding off into the sunset, but that's not the only way the series messes with the status quo this season, as many of the characters undergo significant changes over the course of these 22 episodes, all to do with romance. Milo and Pamela Hamster break up off-screen, Albert and S. Margot get together, which is kind of cute I guess, then we learn Mr. Baldwin has feelings for Miss Lips, and they start a relationship that carries over into the following season. But the main focus is Oscar getting a girlfriend named Angela, played by Felicia Day, which is developed over several episodes in the series' first true story arc, and it's also my least favourite part of the season because of how they handled it. During her first few episodes, Oscar and Angela are a nice couple. They share each other's interests, and she proves to be a good influence on Oscar, bringing him out of his shell. But throughout their entire relationship, there is a shadow hanging over them.
Listen, guys.
I've never mentioned Oscar's crush on Bea at any point in my analysis so far, simply because it's never been plot relevant, being played as more of a running gag than anything. Going into the series, I expected Oscar to be creepy and obsessive towards her, but compared to other versions of this dynamic we've been subjected to, even in this show, this is relatively tame. I wasn't a fan of these moments, but they didn't diminish my enjoyment of any episodes. Until now. Because despite the fact Oscar has a girlfriend, he is still madly in love with Bea, which could have been interesting if they were bothered in exploring that. The thing is, I know how this show ends, and spoiler alert, Bea and Oscar do end up together, so I've been watching the show waiting for the moment they start treating them as a viable couple. But then Angela entered the picture, and I completely forgot about all that because I enjoyed seeing them as a couple. Until I realised the only reason she is here is to jumpstart some sort of romantic tension between Bea and Oscar. All that comes to pass in the season finale, Fish Prom, written and storyboarded by Derek Evanick and Diana Lafitias. Everyone is excited for prom, believing it will be the greatest night of their lives. Bea is able to ask out Steve Jackson, and Oscar is excited to go with Angela, but...
What if we skip prom and play Possum Rage 4 all night? That'd be fun! We'll be like, pew pew, die already!
Something you'll quickly catch on to is Angela has suddenly become unlikable, valuing video games over Oscar, bringing a VR helmet so she can ignore the dance and by extension, him. Meanwhile, Bea's night is also wrecked when Steve Jackson mysteriously disappears.
Whoa, that's a nasty spill. I should help clean that up. Oh cool, there's cleaning supplies in here.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all these chairs.
Hello?
After a while, Oscar has had enough and turns off Angela's game, confronting her, leading to the classic Freudian slip.
I thought tonight was gonna be the most special night of my life, and all I wanted was that one dance with you, Bea. I didn't mean to say that.
Whoa. Bea? Whoa. Whoa. Whoa!
When the last dance of the night begins and everyone couples up, Bea storms off in tears as Oscar follows her.
This is supposed to be the most important night of our life, and I won't let your memories go down this way. You will not go without a dance, my lady, because I will give you that dance.
What? Really?
I mean, I don't want to be weird, you know? Sorry, I know I always come off weird.
No, not at all. I mean, a dance with you actually sounds really nice.
Despite my complaints, I still did really enjoy this episode as a fun ending to the season. I love the opening musical number, it's nice seeing so many things from the past 21 episodes receive some sort of payoff. This is easily the prettiest the show has ever looked, and I'll admit, I was kind of invested. Even though I could tell how badly executed the story was, when Oscar accidentally said Bea's name, I did find myself falling back into that childish mindset of hyping myself up over what will happen next. And that ending scene is really sweet and effectively sets the stage for the final season. Oh, yeah, season 3 is the end.
Well, looks like my work here is done. Lunch Lady Latona has her job back. Oscar's finally being punished. And we've all learned a very valuable lesson about something. See you next episode!
Clap your feet, lift your dance, school's out, ring a bell.
Fishhooks was greenlit for a third season sometime around November 2011, which premiered in June of 2013, with series director Mr. Warburton announcing a few months later that it would be the show's last. This season is also the shortest of the show's run, with 16 episodes, capping off the series with 59 episodes comprised of 110 total stories. Season 3 can be divided into 4 categories: standard one-off episodes in line with the previous seasons, high-concept episodes that experiment with alternate forms of storytelling, side character spotlights meant to conclude ongoing character arcs, and plot-related episodes that build Bea and Oscar's relationship, all leading up to the finale. So it makes sense to tackle each of these one at a time, starting with the regular episodes. In the lead up to the season, Noah Z. Jones said he wanted to harken back to season 1, and I could certainly feel that in many of these segments, because a lot of them are just kind of there. I think by this point I was pretty much over watching episodes using the show's classic formula, because by now they have proven they can do so much better. I also get this sense of fatigue setting in, which is evident in the comedy because these episodes simply don't hit the same. For seasons 1 and 2, I took so many notes during each episode, highlighting jokes I thought were funny or anything interesting it had to say about the characters. But for so many of these, I couldn't write a single thing about them. There's an episode where Bea teaches a chicken to swim, it's okay. There's an episode where Milo gives Oscar his party powers, it's okay. There's an episode where they play Dungeons and Dragons, that one's pretty bad. The handful of these I enjoyed was Freshwater 5-0, written and storyboarded by Ian Wazaluke, which was mainly because of how overtly anti-cop it was.
Quick! Driving through the split screen!
I also like Bye Bye Bee, written and storyboarded by C.H. Greenblatt and William Reese, which is mostly for its opening being an homage to Good Morning Baltimore from Hairspray. Then there's South Pacific, written and storyboarded by Dominic Bizignano. This one gets bonus points because of its commentary on schools cutting funding for the arts. However, you could argue that it doesn't even belong in this section, because it's debatably a send-off episode for Principal Nurse Fishington. Though in a way, I can understand why so many of these felt dull, because the staff were putting all of their energy into high concept and gimmick episodes. A few segments this season get very experimental with how they tell their stories, and these are fantastic. Up there with the best of season 2 because they focus mostly on the secondary cast and that ensemble feel. Milo vs. Milo, written and storyboarded by Neil Graff and Ian Wazaluke, sees Milo invading a hamster sitcom and taking it over, starting a rivalry with the show's previous star that ends with one of their best action scenes.
Milo, dear, may I have a word in the closet?
Oh, okay! I love going in closets!
Fish Taco, written and storyboarded by Maxwell Atoms, C.H. Greenblatt and William Reese, is one of those classic vignette episodes that follows a specific object as it gets passed around various characters, giving us brief windows into their life off-screen. But the highlight, and my favourite 11-minute episode of the season, is Surfing the Interweb, written and storyboarded by all these talented people. It follows Miss Lips looking up videos online featuring the cast, and is easily the funniest episode this season.
I had a lot of thoughts today.
Oh, I hate thoughts.
But the highlight of the episode, of course, goes to Chelsea, as she gives us perhaps the best scene of the entire show. It's just a tightly written episode that harkens back to a simpler time of the internet. If you only watch one episode from this show, I cannot recommend this one highly enough. We also get to see how Coach Salmons and Mr. Muscles met, via a video dating service.
Hello! I enjoy quiet conversation!
Now, there is one more high-concept episode, and it's one of the 4 22-minute specials this season. Season 3, Episode 6, Pool Party Panic, written by Joe Johnston. This is one of the series' most famous episodes because it shows us what the entire cast would look like as humans, something fans back then were very excited about. After all, that's what Fishhooks needed. Less whimsy. I gotta be honest, y'all, for the first half of its runtime, it was a chore to get through this one. I don't get anything out of seeing these characters transformed into humans because it's just as dull as the other random episodes this season, but now it also looks worse. Maybe it's the lack of thick outlines on the characters, or the way they keep everything so on model, leaving it devoid of any personality. I'll give it this though, it did make me appreciate the actual show a lot more. Then at the midpoint, it goes in an unexpected direction, revealing Milo is in some sort of coma as things get turned up to Inception level weird with multi-level dreams.
Now listen, the only way you're going to wake up is if you take a deep look inside yourself.
But I'm not even sure I know who I am anymore.
And here the episode regained my attention because I started considering if this might be Milo's send-off, where he has to reflect on his past and comes out of it a better person. But no, Milo just has to remember that he's a fish and that solves everything. It has some fun moments towards the end, but ultimately it's kind of a waste of a 22-minute special. But that is pretty much the end of anything overly negative I have to say about Season 3 because I think the rest of it does a great job building its way towards the ending, starting with several spotlight episodes meant to act as a victory lap for the side characters and close out their stories. Albert deals with growing up and his changing body while he and Esmargot continue their relationship, Finberly finds self-confidence which carries over into the final episodes, and Chelsea essentially gets 3 different send-offs. But the big last hurrah is our second 22-minute special of the season, Labour of Love, written and storyboarded by Derek Evanick, Joe Johnston and Diana Lafayette, which not only sees Mr. Baldwin and Miss Lips get engaged, but ties up one of the show's longest running threads as Mr. Baldwin finally gives birth. The last group of episodes this season is focused on developing Bea and Oscar's relationship following the end of Fish Prom as a way to build up to the finale, essentially having to speedrun their arc to compensate for how most of its run the show has not taken these two seriously as a potential pairing. And the way it tries to remedy this is the introduction of Oscar's brain, played by David Tennant, who tries to ensure he makes all the right choices that will lead to him and Bea ending up together. This also involves Oscar getting some closure for how things ended with Angela by trying to apologize and eventually making amends, which was nice to see, especially after I wasn't a fan of how their relationship was handled in the final episodes of season 2. However, that is all on Oscar's side, and we all know how he feels. But what about Bea, who has pretty much never shown anything resembling romantic interest in Oscar? Well, that changes in the 3rd extended episode of the season, Camp Camp. Subtle, guys. Real subtle. Previously in the season, popular teen singer Brandon Bubbler started attending Freshwater after his popularity tanked, and since then Bea has gotten rather close to him. With the kids all heading to summer camp, she's hoping they'll be able to make it official, much to Oscar's dismay.
I don't understand why you have to tell me every little detail of your relationship. I mean, have you thought maybe I don't want to hear this stuff?
What?
However, Bea's plans for summer romance fail to bloom when she discovers Brandon isn't as serious as she thought, leading to Oscar trying to comfort her.
I always thought I could get anything in the world if I just believed in it and really wanted it hard enough. That's pretty dumb, right?
Well, yeah. If it makes you feel any better, I do stupid stuff all the time. In fact, Milo used to write it all down on a list. At least until he hit his head on the sink and now he doesn't write anything anymore. I think what I'm trying to say is, everyone is stupid. So, you know, you're not alone.
Thanks.
Now, the episode itself isn't really about Oscar and Bea. Instead, it's kind of the send-off episode for Coach Salmons, where we learn his tragic backstory and see him make peace with his sister. But these moments sprinkled throughout are all to make Bea have the realization that she may have feelings for Oscar.
I think maybe I've been going after the wrong kind of guy.
This is why, despite it not lining up with the production nor airing order and making no sense timeline-wise, I view Camp Camp as though it were part 1 of the finale because Bea's epiphany isn't brought up again until the last episode, The Big Woo. Written and storyboarded by Maxwell Atoms, Nosy Jones, David Evanick, Diana Lafayette, C.H. Greenblatt and William Reese. After 4 long years, the students are preparing for their high school graduation. Everyone is deciding on where they'll be going for college and gearing up for the future, though there remains some unresolved tension.
I'll figure this out. What is the one thing you would never want to... Chelsea, please! Wow, this would be really bad. Like, really unspeakable. Ah! My gosh! You finally realize you think you might like Oscar! Wow, you're pretty good.
While B is trying to figure out what to do, Oscar has come to the long overdue conclusion that he's been the only thing standing in his way. Confused about what to do in response to these feelings, B hides in the auditorium, a nice detail since her acting career hasn't really been all that relevant this season, where she's confronted by Mr. Muscles. Now excuse me, but I need to go on one final tangent about Mr. Muscles and Coach Salmons. Back in season 1, these two made regular appearances together which carried a certain fruity vibe. So I theorised they were in a relationship and posted this to Twitter. Then I started season 2, where they only appeared together one time during the last episode, which got me thinking maybe Disney executives caught on to what was happening and demanded some changes, only making me more sure that was the writer's original intention. So I was elated watching season 3, which not only returns to season 1's depiction of these characters, but makes it abundantly obvious.
Children, I have a sister-related headache I need to go deal with. Do what you like for the rest of the evening. Muscles draw my bath.
You want the lemon scent or the lavender musk?
You get the sense of them realising this was their last season, so they just said screw it and wrote them into as many episodes as possible. But when I arrived at this scene while watching the finale, I cannot tell you how vindicated I felt, to the point I was practically bouncing off the walls.
I know enough not to ever give up on love. When you love someone, you are two parts of a whole. Maybe whoever you love is a big shot gym coach and you are just a lonely drama teacher. But you find a way to make it work.
At this point, I'm fairly sure I'll be making a Patreon and channel member exclusive video discussing these two and everything we can extrapolate about their relationship from their appearances across the series. Anyway, continuing with the finale, let's see what Milo is up to. He wants to pull a senior prank, and that's his final storyline in the entire series, which was a letdown, especially since early on they teased this idea of Milo having to confront the idea of change, which could have been a compelling way to end his story.
I cannot wait for everything to stay exactly the same. You, me, and B, just three dudes doing the same old dude stuff until the end of due time.
However, this goes absolutely nowhere, which after watching the show constantly flirt with the prospect of doing something interesting with Milo without ever actually following through, I'm not surprised at this point, just disappointed. Graduation day arrives as Oscar admits his feelings to B, but she says that she doesn't know how she feels yet before heading up to give her speech, during which she can reflect and finally reveals that she feels the same way about Oscar.
It has been 4 years of good times and bad times, of adventures and close shaves. I never would have guessed that things would have turned out this way. But as we swim into uncharted waters, as long as we stay together, we will always be a school of fish. Doodly-doo.
The Big Woo is a flawed but satisfying ending to Fishhooks. What it lacks in comedy, it makes up for in demonstrating how most of these characters have been able to mature over the course of the show. What impressed me most is despite the limited runtime and how much it has to cram in there, it is still able to make room for these quiet and reflective moments that give it some real emotional weight and makes it feel worthy as a conclusion, which is kind of how I describe this season as a whole. It makes many stumbles along the way, but is ultimately able to stick the landing. If you made me pick, I would say this is the weakest season. Even at its very best, it rarely stacks up against season 2, feeling at times like it's taking 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. But if you're gonna watch the show, you might as well finish it off with this.
1, 2, 3, 4, who's that knocking at my door? 5, 6, 7, 8, hurry up and don't be late. 9, 10, 11, 12, got a secret I can tell. Clap your feet, flip your tail, school's out, ring a bell.
When Fishhooks began its run, it was seen as a necessity. The first cartoon the channel picked up since Phineas and Ferb meant to add more variety to its lineup alongside its assortment of popular live-action sitcoms. The weird, often loud, and artist-driven show was unlike anything else to have ever aired on the network, especially when placed alongside some of the most successful children's shows ever created at the height of their popularity, which turned away a lot of people. It also didn't help that the first handful of episodes didn't make the best impressions, but those who decided to stick around got to watch it grow into an endlessly creative comedic powerhouse, going from derivative to innovative, pioneering a style of comedy in Disney cartoons that still goes strong to this day, which makes it difficult to truly hate Fishhooks when you can see so much of its DNA in some of the most beloved cartoons of the last decade. And I'm happy I was finally able to revisit the show and give it some long overdue flowers. It's not one of my favourite cartoons, not by a long shot, but it was this strange experiment by some of the biggest names in the animation industry that in a way also signalled this almost passing of the torch to younger upcoming artists. And for that reason alone, it deserves to be remembered. Until next time, I've been the Gladding Gladiator, and I'll see ya real soon.